so difficult?
I don't know. This is technology.
It wasn't that difficult. It just a pain in the ass.
I get what you mean. Not hard, just tedious.
Get this over here. Oh, I don't know why it's so difficult. Look there, finally. Everything about this. Should go on there and block like every single word except for the thumbs up. Said we're on that chapter.
Mm-hmm.
4,
Mm-hmm.
obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly.
Yep.
This is damn, if I could talk. This is 1984. Yeah. So I guess I'll start reading. With a deep, unconscious sigh, which not even the nearness of the telescreen could prevent him from uttering when his day's work started, Winston pulled the speakwrite towards him, blew the dust from its mouthpiece, and put on his spectacles. Then he unrolled and clipped together 4 small cylinders of paper which had already flopped out of the pneumatic tube on the right hand side of his desk. In the walls of the cubicle there were 3 orifices. To the right of the speak wire, a small pneumatic tube for written messages. To the left, a larger one for newspapers. And in the side wall, within easy reach of Winston's arm, a large oblong slit protected by a wire grating. This last was for disposal of waste paper. Similar slits existed in thousands or tens of thousands throughout the building. Not only in every room, but at short intervals in every corridor. For some reason, they were nicknamed memory holes. When one knew that any document was due for destruction, or even when one saw a scrap of waste paper lying around, it was an automatic action to lift the flap of the nearest memory hole and drop it in, whereupon it would be whirled away on a current of warm air to enormous furnaces which were hidden somewhere in the recess of the building. Or in the recesses of the building, said that wrong.
You know what's weird about that to think about? Think about how our great grandparents and like our grandparents were with like scraps of paper. Did they throw anything away? No. I think about when we moved in here, all the bits of like receipts with phone numbers and like just meaningless information that they had hoarded, to imagining a society where everything is just gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like out of sight, out of mind.
Yep.
It's just weird.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Winston examined the 4 slips of paper which he had unrolled. Each contained a message of only 1 or 2 lines, in the abbreviated jargon, not actually newspeak, but consisting largely of newspeak words. which was used in the ministry for internal purposes. They ran time 17384 BB speech Mao reported Africa rectify times 1912 83 forecast 3 YP fourth quarter 83 misprints verify current issue times 14 to 84 mini plenty mal quoted chocolate rectify times 31283 reporting BB day order double plus ungood refs unperson rewrite full wise up sub and ante filing. With a faint feeling of satisfaction, Winston laid the fourth message aside. It was an intricate and responsible job and had better be dealt with last. The other three were routine matters, though the second one would probably mean some tedious wading through lists of figures. Winston dialed back the numbers on the telescreen and called for the appropriate issue of the Times, which slid out of the pneumatic tube after only a few minutes' delay. The message he had received referred to articles or news items which, for one reason or another, it was thought necessary to alter, or as the official phase had it, to rectify. For example, it appeared from the Times of the 17th of March that Big Brother, in his speech of the previous day, had predicted that the South Indian Front would remain quiet, but that a Eurasian offense would shortly be launched in North Africa. As it happened, the Eurasian Higher Command had launched its offensive in South India and left North Africa alone. It was therefore necessary to rewrite a paragraph of Big Brother's speech in such a way as to make him predict that the thing that had actually happened. Or again, the Times of the 19th of December had published the official forecast of the output of various classes of consumption goods in the fourth quarter of 1983, which was also the sixth quarter of the ninth three-year plan. Today's issue contained a statement of the actual output, from which it appeared that the forecasts were in every instance grossly wrong. Winston's job was to rectify the original figures by making them agree with the latter ones. As for the third message, it was referred to a very simple error which could be set right in a couple of minutes. As short a time ago as February, the Ministry of Plenty had issued a promise, a categorical pledge, were the official words, that there would be no reduction of chocolate ration during 1984. Actually, as Winston was aware, the chocolate ration was to be reduced from 30 grams to 20 at the end of the present week. All that was needed was to substitute for the original promise a warning that it would probably be necessary to reduce the ration at some time in April. As soon as Winston had dealt with each of the messages, he clipped his written corrections to the appropriate copy of the Times and pushed them into the pneumatic tube. Then, with a movement which was nearly as possible unconscious, he crumpled up the original message and any notes that he himself had made and dropped them into the memory hole to be devoured by the flames. What happened in the unseen labyrinth to which the pneumatic tubes led, he did not know in detail, but he did know in general terms as soon as all the corrections which happened to be necessary in any particular number of the Times had been assembled and collated. that number would be reprinted, the original copy destroyed, and the corrected copy placed on the file in its stead. Yeah. Stead. This process of continuous alteration was applied not only to newspapers but to books, periodicals, pamphlets, posters, leaflets, films, soundtracks, cartoons, photographs, to every kind of literature or document which might conceivably hold any political or ideological significance. That's pretty insane.
Well, yeah, because, and for me, I'm not trying to be dumb and bring up the Mandela effect, but, like, everybody was like, why would they do that to, like, children's books? Like, why would they do it to dumb things? Because they can.
Oh, yeah.
Like this. Like, because it suits their narrative.
Yep.
Like, and, like, no one can do anything about it because they're not upfront about it. It's all subversive and quiet.
Yep. 100%. It's crazy. Well, that, and you think about it, you think about, like our government being like, hey, gas prices are going to be lower in the next month. And everybody sees it in the news, everybody reads it in the news, and they knew that they seen it, but they go back to the news and refer to it, and it's changed. It's no longer there.
Yep.
And I feel like they've done that with information, you know? It's kind of like you just said, like the Mandela effect, you know?
Well, yeah, but even think about more recent news events that me and you've been, like, looking into, and then we go to look back into it, the identity of someone, or the date of something, or, you know, materials used in something, and it's just gone.
Yep. Yep.
You know, like the whole story's like changing every time we click refresh on the news.
Yep. Well, 100%. So, unfortunately, I have to do the commentary. I don't know if you enjoy it or if you don't enjoy it, but unfortunately, it is a necessity here, because if not, then I'll get copyrighted and can't read this and yada, 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 whatever. But anyways, that's the reason I pause, and that's the reason why I can't just keep reading. So, anyways, I will continue reading. Day by day, and almost minute by minute, the past was brought up to date. In this way, every prediction made by the party could be shown by documentary evidence to have been corrected. Nor was any item of news or any expression of opinion which conflicted with the needs of the moment ever allowed to remain on record. All history was a palimpsest, scraped clean, and re-inscribed exactly as often as was necessary. In no case would it have been possible, once the deed was done, to prove that any falsification had taken place. The largest section of the records department, far larger than the one in which Winston worked, consisted simply of persons whose duty it was to track down and collect all copies of books, newspaper, and other documents which had been superseded and were due for destruction. A number of the times which might, because of changes in political alignment or mistaken prophecies uttered by Big Brother, have been rewritten a dozen times, still stood on the files bearing its own original date, and no other copy existed to contradict it. Books also were recalled and rewritten again and again, and were invariably reissued without any admission that any alteration had been made. Even the written instructions which Winston received, and which he invariably got rid of as soon as he had dealt with them, never stated or implied that any act of forgery was to be committed. Always the reference was to slips, errors, misprints, or misquotations, which it was necessary to write in the interest of accuracy. But actually, he thought, as he readjusted the Ministry of Plenty's figures, it was not even forgery, it was merely the substitution of one piece of nonsense for another. Most of the material that you were dealing with had no connection with anything in the real world, not even the kind of connection that is contained in a direct lie. Statistics were just as much a fantasy in their original version as in their rectified version. Rectified version. A great deal of the time, you were expected to make them up and out of your head. For example, the Ministry of Plenty's forecast had estimated the output of boots for the quarter to be at 145 million pairs. The actual output was given as 62 million. Winston, however, in rewriting the forecast, marked the figure down to 57 million, so as to allow for the usual claim that the quota had been overfilled. In any case, 62 million was no nearer to the truth than 57 million, or than the 145 million. Very likely, no boots had been produced at all. Likelier still, nobody knew how many had been produced, much less cared. All one knew was that every quarter astronomical numbers of boots were produced on paper, while perhaps half the production of Oceania was barefoot. Production population. Wow. You know, you'd think that I didn't know how to read. I don't know how I've made it this far.
Reading out loud sucks for everybody.
Reading out loud does.
Have you ever listened to an audiobook?
I obviously I don't.
No, like not an expensive audiobook, but like some janky Audible special. Sometimes they're bad.
Yeah, which is true. Anyways, carrying on, trying to read better, working it out. Well, perhaps half the population of Oceania went barefoot. And so it was with every class of recorded fact, great or small, everything faded away into a shadow world in which, finally, even the date of the year had become uncertain. Winston glanced across the hall. In the corresponding cubicle on the other side, a small, precise-looking, dark-chinned man named Tillotson was working steadily away, with a folded newspaper on his knee and his mouth very close to the mouthpiece of the speaker wire. He had the air of trying to keep what he was saying a secret between himself and the telescreen. He looked up, and his spectacles darted a hostile flash in Winston's direction. Winston hardly knew Tillotson, and had no idea what work he was employed on. People in the records department did not readily talk about their jobs. In the long, windowless hall, with its double row of cubicles and its endless rustle of papers and hum of voices murmuring into speaker rights, there were quite a dozen people whom Winston did not even know by name, though he daily saw them hurrying to and fro in the corridors or gesticulating. What the hell is gesticulating?
I'm no dictionary, but I'm pretty sure it's like bullshitting by the water cooler.
Okay.
Or no. He's talking about in the moment or in the time of hate. It's the being like hyper emoting.
Oh, like spazzing out.
Yeah, dramatic motions and.
Okay.
Like you're gesturing.
Oh, I guess
words.
if I would have figured.
Context.
Yeah, if I would have finished the sentence, it says gesticulating in the 2 minutes of hate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there it is. I just couldn't just quite finish that one, I guess. Anyways, he knew that in the cubicle next to him, the little woman with with sandy hair toiled day in, day out, simply at tracking down and deleting from the press the names of the people who had been vaporized and were therefore considered never to have existed. There was a certain fitness in this, since her own husband had been vaporized a couple years earlier. And a few cubicles away, a mild and effectual, dreamy creature named Ampleforth. Ampleforth? Come here, Ampleforth.
I'm just like, what kind of names were they expecting us to have?
Yeah.
This dude wasn't even writing that long ago.
Yeah.
He's writing like 30 or 40 years in the future.
Names did get pretty stupid.
But I don't know about that stupid.
Ampleforth. Ampleforth, with very hairy ears and a surprising talent for juggling with rhymes. Oh yeah, I guess he did say dreamy. Dreamy creature named Ampleforth.
Yeah, but back then it's not like we say dreamy. It's like, oh, they're dreamy, but he means like daydreamy, like slow.
I just see some like lady like twirling her ear hair.
Okay.
Stupid.
Back to the story.
Back to the story. Anyways, in a few cubicle ways, a mild and effectual dreamy creature named Ampleforth, with very hairy ears and a supervising talent for juggling. Okay, done. Juggling with rhymes and meters, was engaged in producing garbled versions, definitive texts they were called, of poems which had become ideologically offensive, but which, for one reason or another, were to be retained in the anthologies and this hall, with its 50 workers or thereabouts, was only one subsection, a single cell, as it were, in the huge complexity of the records department. Beyond, above, below, were other swarms of workers engaged in an unimaginable multitude of jobs. There were the huge printing shops with their sub-editors, their typography experts, and their elaborately equipped studios for faking photographs. There was a There was the teleprogram sections with its engineers, its producers, and its terms of actors specifically chosen for their skill in imitating voices. There were the armies of reference clerks, whose job was simply to draw up lists of books and periodicals which were due for recall. There were the vast repositories where the corrected documents were stored and hidden, or in the hidden furnaces where the original copies were destroyed. And somehow or other, quite anonymous, there were the directing brains who coordinated the whole effort and laid down the lines of policy which made it necessary that this fragment of the past should be preserved. That one falsified and the other rubbed out of existence. And the records department, after all, was itself only a single branch of the Ministry of Truth, whose primary job was not to reconstruct the past, but to supply the citizens of Oceania with newspaper, films, textbooks, telescreen programs, plays, novels, with every conceivable kind of information, instruction, or entertainment, from the statue to a slogan, from a lyric poem to a biological treatise. What is this shit? It's all gobbledygook. Gobbledygook.
I think you said it right the first time.
Treatise? Either way.
Mm-hmm.
And from a child's spelling book to a Newspeak dictionary. And the ministry had not only to supply the multifarious needs of the party, but also to repeat the whole operation at a lower level for the benefit of the proletariat. There was a whole chain of separate departments dealing with the proletariat literature, music, drama, and entertainment generally. Here were produced rubbishy newspapers containing almost nothing except sports, crime, and astrology, sensational 5-cent novelettes, films oozing with sex, and sentiment songs which were composed entirely by mechanical means on a special kind of kaleidoscope known as a versificator. There was even a whole subsection, pornosec, it was called in Newspeak, engaged in producing the lowest kind of pornography, which was sent out in sealed packages and which no party member, other than those who worked on it, was permitted to look at. Yeah, okay, I said that right. I don't know why I thought I said that wrong.
Like we talked about earlier, they're just using it to control. Like, think of what they're talking about right now. Those people are in charge of essentially Facebook or Twitter, Instagram. Like, back when we were kids, it would have been cable TV with all the trashy magazines, like Inquirer, TMZ.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, everything to just keep the poor and stupid and distracted.
Yep. As we're sitting here poor, stupid, and distracted with this dumbass book.
You're dumb.
You're not going to say that twice.
Whatever.
I know. 3 messages had slid out of the pneumatic tube while Winston was working, but they were simple matters, and he had disposed of them before the 2 minutes hate interrupted him. When the hate was over, he returned to his cubicle, took the Newspeak dictionary from the shelf, pushed the speak wire to one side, cleaned his spectacles, and settled down to his main job of the morning. Winston's greatest pleasure in life was his work, or was in his work. Most of it was a tedious routine, but included in it there were also jobs so difficult and intricate that you could lose yourself in them, as in the depths of a mathematical problem. Delicate pieces of forgery in which you had nothing to guide you except your knowledge of principles of Ingsoc and your estimate of what the party wanted you to say. Winston was good at this. Oh, so he's a good little kiss-asser.
Mm-hmm.
Ass kisser. Kiss-asser.
It's the only way to be in a society like that.
Yep.
That's why they create that environment.
Yep. But anyways, Winston was good at this kind of thing. On occasion, he had even been entrusted with the rectification of the Times leading articles, which were written entirely in Newspeak. He unrolled the message that he had set aside earlier. It ran: Times 3/12/83 reporting BB day order double plus ungood refs unpersons rewrite fully wise up sub anti-filing or anti-filing. In old speak or standard English, this might be rendered: the reporting of Big Brother's order of the day in times of December 3rd, 1983 is extremely unsatisfactory and makes reference to non-existent persons. Rewrite it in full and submit your draft to higher authority before filing. Winston read through the offending article. Big Brother's order for the day. It seemed had been chiefly devoted to praising the work of an organization known as FFCC, which supplied cigarettes and other comforts to sailors in floating fortresses. A certain comrade Withers, a prominent member of the inner party, had been singling out for special mentions and awarded singlings had been singled he had been singled out for special mention and awarded a decoration, the Order of Conspicuation.
Some of these words are going to
Conspicuous. The hell is that? The Order of Conspicuous. Conspicuous.
I'm trying to see where you're pointing. Oh, right there. Conspicuous. I don't know. Like I said, some of these words are made up. So.
Yeah. Merit, second class. 3 months later, FFCC had suddenly been dissolved with no reasons given. One could assume that Withers and his associates were now in disgrace, but there had been no report of the matter in the press or on the telescreen. That was to be expected, since it was unuseful for political offenders to be put on trial or even publicly denounced. The great purges involving thousands of people with public trials of traitors and thought criminals who made abject confession of their crimes and were afterwards executed were special showpieces not occurring oftener than once in a couple years. More commonly, people who had incurred the displeasure of the party simply disappeared and were never heard of again. One had the smallest clue as to what had happened to them. In some cases, they might not even be dead. Perhaps 30 people personally known to Winston, not counting his parents, had disappeared at one time or another. That's insane, just like disappearing people and just
gone.
Yeah, no regard for them.
Nope.
Winston stroked his nose gently with a paperclip. In the cubicle across the way, Comrade Tillotson was still crouching secretively over his speak right. He raised his head for a moment. Again, the hostile spectacle flashed. Winston wondered whether Comrade Tillotson was engaged on the same job as himself. It was perfectly possible. So tricky a piece of work would never be entrusted to a single person. On the other hand, to turn it over to a committee would be to adapt openly that an act of fabrication was taking place. Very likely, as many as a dozen people were now working away on rival versions of what Big Brother had actually said, and presently some master brain in the inner party would select this version or that, would re-edit it and set in motion the complex processes of cross-referencing that would be required. And then the chosen lie would pass into the permanent records and become truth. Well, what sketches me out about this is back in the day, or even at this point in time, people relied on newspaper. Like, they relied on things to be written down. And so, with things being written down, you had a good, solid, like, something that had to be burned. They had to collect these copies and they had to burn these copies. But we live in the day and age where all they have to do is simply change something on your Wikipedia. They change. It's not even only limited to Wikipedia. It's anywhere on the internet, and they can automatically just change this stuff. And then where's your record that it ever happened? Are you printing everything off?
Yep.
I mean, there was that one lady that had been keeping record of every single thing, and now what's happened to it?
Yep.
So, I mean, realistically, I feel like it's pretty insane.
Oh, it the hell stresses me out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then the fact as soon as she died and it got donated and they like shut it all down, it was all just too sketchy.
Nope.
Too sketchy for me.
Well, and it's just, I don't know. It's not good when we're on the 4th chapter and you're seeing so many similarities.
Just changed his name to 2025.
Well, yeah. 2025. Well, I mean, realistically, should just do the 2025 thing, and we'll just ask the AI chatbot.
Oh, God.
So how does this book compare up to what we're actually going through? Then we just skip reading this thing.
Right.
No, people want to hear it.
And I feel like there's something inherently wrong asking chat anything about 1984.
Chat's gonna lie. Chat's gonna be like, hey, no, it's in my guidelines to tell you that everything's okay.
1984 is like holy water to Chat GPT.
It's like, yeah, chat. It would just tell you 1984 is just completely fiction. It's all a hoax. That guy was a crackpot.
Literally, though.
Anyways, continuing on. Winston did not know why Withers had been disgraced. Perhaps it was for corruption or incompetence. That's why I would get disgraced. Incompetence. Perhaps Big Brother was merely getting rid of a too popular subordinate. Perhaps Withers or someone else close to him had had been suspected of heretical tendencies, or perhaps was likeliest of all, the thing had simply happened because purges and vaporizations were a necessary part of a. Why do I keep wanting to say A after everything? Anyways, it says the thing had happened, or had simply happened, because purges and vaporizations were a necessary part of the mechanics of government. The only real clue lay in the words refs on persons, which indicated that Withers was already dead. You could not invariably assume this to be the case when people were arrested. Sometimes they were released and allowed to remain at liberty for as much as a year or two before being executed. Very occasionally, some persons whom had believed dead long since would make a ghostly reappearance at some public trial where he would implicate hundreds of others by his testimony before vanishing, this time forever. Withers, however, was already an unperson. He did not exist. He had never existed. Winston decided that it would not be enough simply to reverse the tendency of Big Brother's speech. It was better to make it deal with something totally unconnected with its original subject. That's crazy.
Winston's got big brains.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, no, people will get suspicious if I even mention anything about it.
Yep.
And I'm like, dang, that makes me wonder.
Well, yeah. He might turn the speech into the usual denunciation of traitors and thought criminals, but that was a little too obvious. While to invent a victory at the front or some triumph over production in the ninth 3-year plan might complicate the records too much. What he needed was a piece of pure fantasy. Suddenly there sprang into his mind, ready-made, as it were, the image of a certain comrade, Ogilvy, Augie Livy. I don't know. These people have the most retarded names.
You know, can I let you in on a secret?
Let me in on your secret.
As me being an avid book reader, I decide how their name is going to be said, and then that's just how I say it.
Ogilvy.
There you go.
Ogilvy looks right. It's still stupid.
It may be stupid, but now you're not gonna be like, well, is this right? And
like what?
Plunder through it every time. You just are like, nope, I don't care if it's dumb.
Yep.
And I've listened to the author's pronunciation of some names, and I'm like, you're wrong.
Yeah. Like, you don't even know. Anyways, who had recently died in battle in heroic circumstances. There were occasions when Big Brother devoted his order for the day to commemorating some humble rank and file party member whose life and death held up as an example worthy to be followed. Today he should commemorate Comrade Ogilvy. It was true that there was no such person as Comrade Ogilvy, but a few lines of print and a couple of faked photographs would soon bring him into existence. Not even a real person. There ain't even anybody that good in their whole society. You know, they had to create somebody.
Well, and it's not even just that, but the beauty of just creating someone is it's a clean slate. Now you can manipulate it one way or the other without all of the work of scrubbing the past because they didn't exist.
Yep.
They're a plant.
Yep. Winston thought for a moment. Then he pulled the speak wire towards him and began dictating in Big Brother's familiar style. A style at once military and pedantic, and because of a trick of asking questions and then promptly answering them. What lessons do we learn from this fact, comrades? The lessons? Which is also one of the fundamental principles of Ingolsoc, that, etc., etc., easy to imitate. Oh, I guess I was supposed to imitate it. Like, what lessons do we learn from this fact, comrades?
Well, it's like...
comrades.
Literally. Well, and like on Zootopia, when she's nervous about going, and he's like, nervous in front of going in front of the press, and he's like, answer their question with a question, and then answer that question.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
Yep. At the age of 3, Comrade Ogilvy had refused all toys except a drum by the age of 3, a submachine gun, a model helicopter. At age 6, a year early, by a special relaxation of the rules, he had joined the Spies, At 9, he had been a troop leader. At 11, he had denounced his uncle to the thought police after overhearing a conversation which appeared to him to have been criminal tendencies. Little narc.
Right? God.
uh, at 17, he had been a district organizer of the Junior Anti Sex League. Oh, so he's an incel. At 19, he had designed a hand grenade which had been adopted by the Ministry of Peace and which, at its first trial, had killed 31 Eurasian prisoners in one burst. At 23, he had published, or he had perished in action. By 23, he is already dead. Wow. Pursued by enemy jets while flying over the Indian Ocean with important dispatches, he had weighted his body with his machine gun and leapt out his helicopter into deep water, dispatches and all. And said Big Brother, wow. Wow. Which it was impossible to contemplate without feelings of envy. Big Brother had added a few remarks on the purity and single-mindedness. Oh, I thought that was something else because they have it like two different lines. I was like, oh, here we go. I just single-mindedness. I didn't see single or the sin. I seen sin and I was like, okay, here we go. Anyway,
Right.
single-mindedness of Conrad Ogilvy's life. He was a total abstainer and non-smoker, had no recreations except a daily hour in the gymnasium, and had taken a vow of celibacy. He believed marriage and care of a family to be incompatible with a 24-hour-a-day devotion to duty. He had no subject of conversation except the principles of Ingsoc, and no aim in life except the defeat of the Eurasian enemy and hunting down of spies, saboteurs, thought criminals, and traitors generally. Winston debated with himself whether to award Comrade Ogilvy the Orders of Conspicuous Merit, and in the end, he decided against it because of the unnecessary cross-reference that would entail. Or cross-referencing that would entail. One time, he glanced at his rival in the opposite cubicle. Something seemed to tell him with certainty that Tillotson was busy on the same job as himself. There was no way of knowing whose version would finally be adopted, but felt a profound conviction that it would be his own. Comrade Ogilvy, unimagined an hour ago, was now, in fact, it struck him as curious that you could create dead men but not living ones. Comrade Ogilvy, who had never existed in the present, now existed in the past, and when once the act of forgery was forgotten, he would exist as authentically and upon the same evidence as Charles Magne, or Julius Caesar. And that is the end of chapter 4. So, if there's anybody here that wants to follow the next one, you're going to have to subscribe. And I will be starting that one at some point, either maybe tonight or potentially I'll wait and start the next one tomorrow since it is already like midnight here, and it kind of seems like chapter 5 might not be the shortest chapter for a guy who reads like The Babysitter on Dennis the Menace.
Oh, whatever.
They're the babysitter's boyfriend.
I'm gonna start making you listen to more audiobooks so you build more reading confidence.
That's like 24 pages.
Babe, I was listening to an audiobook and the lady farted. Just kept reading like it was nothing. This was an audiobook that people are potentially paying $1 for.
That's amazing.
So maybe just relax. It's not that bad.
Anyways, that is the end of this chat.